between government and private sector, who used to be good horse riders, right? And even in basic goods, horses or bullocks were used. So people with horse riding skills were needed. The truckers, right, and car drivers were needed, right? By the time I passed out, Pascal was not needed, so I had to learn C. By the time I learned C++, like I've been kind of retraining myself all through. Now, if you talk about basically the skills, so skills is something that basically be changing, technology, changing innovation, right? And if you specifically talk about people, using ChatGPT or likes of ChatGPT, yes, that is going to be the reality. And people who are going to be well proficient, right, in doing that would be in demand because the jobs would be there in that only. The work would be there in that only. We don't know the horse riders, right, when the automobiles were there, right? You have to learn, to be a good car driver. Similarly, if you have to be a good coder, you have to know, right, how to use the AI assisted tooling. You got to have that vibe, become a vibe coder.
Great answer. I think this seems to be the evolving consensus in the country. The more and more, actually, more and more people here. So, no, over to you, Sangeeta. So, I'll give you a little bit of a background behind this question. So, these days I have more time on my hands to do more productive work, right? Because I wake up in the morning, obviously, I do have a lot of teams in California, so there's a ton of emails that's there in my inbox. I used to spend a lot of time sifting through and triaging those emails before. Right now, I let Gemini do that, right? And if there's a long thread of emails with a lot of argumentative content in it, and then finally there is some conclusion that's hidden somewhere, I just ask Gemini, summarize this for me, and it will give me like 3 lines. And then, if I'm in a mood to respond, I say, compose a response, so then it will compose a response in the right time. So I save a lot of time in XAI, right? And fantastic. Like it's about the train timings at Luxembourg to somewhere else, like it knows everything, right? So given this and the way we are using, the tools, are we like really heading for a jobless hyper-growth situation?
It's a question we think hardly about. I don't think we have the answers. That is undisputed, right? So it is something that is the fact that using these tools you can become an AI, particularly in the enterprise AI world, is still not matching that hype of systems. They are data silos. They have a lot of concern on regulatory kind of challenges. So that there is time for us to prepare for this change. So whether it's upskilling ourselves, whether it's building the skills that it is not just about technology jobs, right? It can be any job. If I can use AI tools well, I can become much more productive. So necessarily from ChatGPT or Gemini, but Google searching, I found India is amongst the lowest productivity globally, right? So how can we use that if we have?
I'll give you a little historical perspective, and let's go back to our horse rider. When horses were there, what kind of formats existed, right? People who used to do horse breeding, grooming for horses, right? Fodder for horses, all that kind of stuff was there. When automobile came, right? A concept of mechanics. Not just that. If you look at the history of transportation, right? The evolution in shipping, the evolution in the aviation technology, the aviation now which is going on, the evolution which is going on, the space tech, right? The new range of rockets which is coming, the space tourism which will come. We will have space colonies maybe, right? There will be apartments people buying in the space, right? God knows, right? But this is an evolving business model. But if you look at from the history, as the technology changes, so does the business models change, right? And new opportunities now. Now, if you talk about specifically the AI, right, and how it is going to impact the job scenario, yes, it is going to impact, right? But what are the new avenues that will evolve, right? We don't have clear visibility as of now. But some of the visibility that I see, that for example, the AI agents that we talk about, the more customization that we need in AI agents, the more personalized customization that we need, probably there will be a lot of need for people who are going to specialize in those kind of things. Or if you basically extend this, the AI into the physical AI space, right, and when it gets into, the the physical bots and especially the humanoids, the customization of those humanoids, and then there'll be like, for every human being there'll be a humanoid. Imagine the kind of workshops that we need to maintain them. I mean, somebody will get a loose screw, right, somewhere. They may need an overhaul. They will have a wear and tear, right? So maybe we'll have more workshops related to humanoids than cars. Sure. So I am very excited in terms of new business models that will evolve. Right, the entertainment industry will go to a new height. I think the sport get engaged in new business models will evolve. It's going to be pretty exciting.
The personalization at hyper population scale, right?
Yes, which will talk to you. Imagine.
I think it's in your perspective, like how do you, especially because you're running a company which has so many techies there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a purist, but I believe that we invest in R&D. We need to be. I think there'll be different segments of technical workforce that can be easily automated. So my view is that unless we do things that are in the top tier, technology that cannot be easily replaced. Levels where you're writing device driver not easily replaceable by other technology. I think there's a need for us to be to see, hey, is this something like if you look at AI and AGI these days, like AGI is developing, so we don't know if this is we are a few years away. We thought it would be 25 years away, but people are saying it's just 3 years away, and there is like some bots can talk to each other and create new forms of intelligence in there. That's artificial intelligence. So I don't know what career path we got to take at population scale. We have to be careful about what we decide to choose to do, right? And having our sights on where it's going, I mean, that's very, very important. Today, co-pilots can easily enhance your productivity. What that means is you don't need a disaster for a country like India with the scale that it has. So, where are we actually playing? And my request to NASSCOM would be, hey, when you're talking to government, I mean, the government should be dollars to actually build core capabilities. Otherwise, you're really going to be left behind.
Agree totally, Ajay. I think it's a very important perspective you're bringing in. But I think just to narrow down to the skills, like this importance of critical thinking, right? Because it's not just about here is how our technology. We imagine what the auto sector is going to be going forward. You should know what goes inside an auto sector. It is the intersection with domain will also become increasingly.
That's right. So R&D gap, you guys see. I want both your.
I think it's a very, very large gap, right? So the number is whatever, 0.6% of India's GDP. Most of the economies that we want to aspire to be are at like 3 to 5%. I'm not even counting the Sweden and the Nordics economies, which are even far ahead. So clearly, India has a huge R&D deficit as we look at it. Even if you go and look at the data, most of the R&D spending is being done by government, right? So it's all the PSUs, the ISROs of the world. Private sector R&D spending in India is a fraction, even for the technology industry, right? And as NASSCOM, we always pride ourselves, we are a services industry, we do so much, but clearly, I think we are not spending enough on R&D. And just comparing it to China and what they've been able to do in the AI wave, I think India is hugely lacking, right? And can we start doing it now? Yes, I think the government has set up the whole ANRF, which is the National Research Foundation. This year's budget has committed 20,000 crore for private sector R&D there. So there's a good start that is happening, right? But I think it requires us to fundamentally change how we think. To your point, right? Coming out of college, I want to do a PhD in what's next, not just about out of campus and my only focus is where's my first placement, right? So I think that change in the environment, not just what the government needs to do, but industries need to do, individuals need to do, all of that has to come together for R&D to take place in India. I think the second is, as India, we don't play the long game most often, right? If you see China's story, they started investing in AI 20 years back. They invited all the global researchers to come from China back to the country, build out, give them the capabilities. Given a democracy, we tend to start questioning ourselves very early on whether we are successful or not. But I think given how critical technologies will now be to our future, we need to play the longer game also. And these are not technologies we know today whether they will be successful or not. But you have to take risks, right?
Actually, there was something you told me off stage that I read. India invested in organizations like ISRO and deep research organizations. Actually, AI is at that spot. It needs that kind of deep research.
And AI and whatever lies ahead, right? I mean, AI is not easy to live.
Stop it into this discussion.
Yeah, I think we need structural organizations like ISRO or NPCI, which help build the whole UPI interface, right? So don't leave it to just an unscattered kind of a version, right? Where something will emerge and we'll be happy about it. I think we need to solve it structurally.
Your views, I know.
Yeah. So let me share with you one of the path-breaking paper that was and which brought forward an architecture called transformer architecture. Now this paper is called "Attention is All You Need," and it was written at Google Brain by a team led by a person called Ashish Vaswani, right, and other I think 10-11 researchers, right. Even today, most of the foundation models, right, those use that architecture. That changed the game altogether, right? If you basically go into the concept inside that, they talk about self-attention, and they talk about basically in that architecture something called as multi-head attention, right? Now, if you look at a paper related to the DeepSeek model that came out, right? I think it was V3, right, paper. And in that paper, if you go through that, what the concept that they talk about and how they've gone about it, they have mentioned the reference to the transformer architecture, that they picked up the concept of multi-head attention and improvised it further, but they call it as multi-head latent attention. Now, why I'm sharing this with you, that the people out there have been tracking this research, right, for quite a very, very long time, right? And they have been experimenting with it, and they have improvised it and taken to the level where it has beaten, existing models. It's another thing, some of the recent developments that I've seen, and probably they'll be coming out in news, that, even whatever DeepSeek did, it is also going to be beaten up, right? So there is something new related to flash attention that is coming out. So, but is that happening in India? Another example I want to share, which I was sharing backstage, was which is cited more than 2 lakh times, right, in the AI papers. Now, who were the people? There were 4 people who wrote that paper. But where were they working? They were working with Microsoft Research in Beijing, right? Have you produced anything of that sort over here? College level, the PhDs that are happening, right? Or the graduate students, right? The kind of work that they do. Level, nor at the academia level, we see that kind of stuff happening until unless comes, right? Fundamentally we are not going to change the quality of the research that happens, right? So we have to build that mindset first, right? That's all I got to say. Yeah.
Great. On that optimistic note, open up to a few audience questions before I can continue with this. I think we'd love to hear what you guys have to ask or say. Is anybody taking the mics around? Can somebody get folks here? Can somebody give him a mic?
Myself, Niranjan David. Startup. So I look at all the startups coming here in the companies. So what I think is that with AI, we are more dependent on the US. Okay, all the companies are in the comparison is we are looking basically at ChatGPT, AI, and APIs, copying the APIs and totally pasting with their products. Hence, so what I am thinking is we are not working on the building the products. We are building the so what government is doing with these kind of specific issues because in US basically these kind of products are made. Okay. The best thing about them is the US in all the other grown-up countries they are providing funds to students and the startups for the research because we are getting the funds from the government because like 18 lakh, 20 lakh, 25 lakh, but for making it comparing like companies like CrowdStrike for the security part is very hard. So, can we grow? How can we compete like companies like CrowdStrike in the security part?
Yeah, I think one of and I kind of was not saying that government has to big if you want to get big results like how you set up something like ISRO. You got to set up something for like AI where you basically have the best talent for what the market is paying. And because it's a government or a quasi-government organization, you're not really financial outcomes, but you're really looking at R&D outcomes, and then that's a good way to actually do research and make those fundamental models available to everybody. The other one that Sangeeta brought up and is also very important is the private enterprise in India should be brave enough to actually go and take a dip into something like this and try to put the money behind what they are saying, right? So you can always use technology that's available for your end goal and build a company around that, or you do a company house. Yes, you don't need to actually, you can just use whatever is available. But can you build that technology that enables thousands and millions of such businesses? That's deep tech. That takes a lot of investments. The private industry will have to do that. So these are two angles.
About the India AI vision that the government has set up, right? Under that, they right now have a call for proposals for building India foundational models. They've already received 120 at C plus of startups and enterprises that are looking to build India specific models. And if the funding is not 10 20 lakh, there is better higher funding. They are saying we are open to ideas, we will fund it. So I think as a startup that is building that, please do look at that and there are proposals they are taking for PhD fellowships for research, so students can take advantage of it, and there's also funding in the application there. So I think just in the we are seeing the foundational models and I mean there's funding available right now which it wasn't in the past. And I think similarly in cybersecurity space there is a grand challenge. NASSCOM sister organization, Major Security Council is looking to get out. So you should, I think it's already been announced, we are happy to share details. Say what the rest is doing. Say, okay, even if it is, this is the India opportunity, how can I be there and get it, right? So we have to figure out ways to make it happen. We will never have the billions of dollars of funding that OpenAI got. Right? That is not going to be the India. I think you can take that offline.
Yeah.
What's your specific?
We'll talk about your project after this week. There's a gentleman in front of you with the black shirt.
Just a quick add-on there. It's nothing like all or none. So you can say that we want to start engines all over again, and therefore the citation about OpenAI, etc., are not valid. That way, you can also go and start with fundamental semiconductor research and stuff like that. I think the world is interconnected. Today should not guide our thinking. It will always be dependent. I mean, we're all connected. Say on the platform. So I think it's a hybrid model. Second point I want to make is that the ISRO ISRO is a state actor. So there the of students being given and creating, not at all. It's a completely capitalist system. So for example, take a contrarian side. What is the good reason that India did not create a WhatsApp? I'm not complaining, but the product mindset is not there. It's very happy to do the bulk software development, it's paying very well, everybody is happy and so on. So the product mindset is something, doesn't have to be always cutting edge, going toe to toe with whatever that's going on ChatGPT and all that. It could be like one of smaller ones. But I hybrid is given. We are dependent. Like the way the US is also dependent on generic drugs from India. So it's not a one-way street either. Listen, we got to be independent. I fully appreciate the Atmanirbhar and all that, but that's in a different context. But we should. Another thing is to your point, if it's a strategic trust in terms of cybersecurity, make it part of ISRO or something like that. It doesn't matter. I mean, you got to do it, whatever it takes. So, and the rest of the stuff, I completely agree with it. The private capital should step in. It doesn't cost that much. Creating a viable product, people are thinking of 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs, say 100 to 500 million dollars investment over a 5-year period.
I think fully buy the point on Atmanirbharta does not mean everything has to be indigenous, right? But are there a few things taking a hybrid approach to indigenous or Atmanirbharta means, right? So,
Even if you look at China, right, at the fundamental research level, they have not done anything, right? But they have been very smart in improvising things and making it EV in China, right? Foundational models were not made in China, right? But they have done a better job of improvising the foundation model, right? And then there's a whole ecosystem of capital, right? US has evolved of capital, based on various enterprises, and when their capitalization increases, people cash out. They have basically, Satya, right? If you look at the cards or others, right? People who have kind of cashed out and have, surplus money, they could be adventurous to invent. If you look at, Rian, like $100 million plus to set up a data center, right? That I'm going to build foundation model. That's a risk he took, right? So it's at a nascent stage in India. There are a lot of bright minds who have done exceptionally well in US. They are running biggest enterprises in the world. They have done exceptionally well in research. Ashish Wasami, he led the team which built the fast breaking transformer architecture. I don't think many people know about it over here, right? That's the kind of mindset that we live in. So it's at a nascent stage. I think the capital formation is happening. It's going in. People will cash out, right? There will be more research that will happen.
I think she's waiting for a question. You overachieved.
Yeah, thank you. Really great points shared, and taking a segue from what Ms. Sangeeta Gupta said and the Jennifer over here regarding how India is in research and foundation models, and how there could be a how the world is connected, so everything is geopolitical. Also, we also have these fear-based regulations and policies. On the other hand, so where is the way in which the startups can get a direction? And this is what we can help you with, or there has to be some sort of sandbox or some sort of, is there a thought process? I'm sure there is. Can we know a little bit about it?
AI regulation is a topic that's been discussed a lot. The approach India is taking is that right now we don't need a overarching AI or copyrights, etc. That is the change they will do. If it's about consumer protection, we have a Consumer Affairs Act, right? So the Information Technology Act, the DPTP bill has come in. So there is, which is not, which can be adapted to different AI use cases. So the approach right now is technology to innovate, to build out our capabilities, rather than saying regulate, regulate, regulate. I think that is not the approach that the government is doing. They have published an AI governance paper which is available on the which is again taking saying a whole of government approach, not isolated approaches like TRAI. So clearly, I think India has very clearly stated that we will balance with adoption and regulation. We will not see any short-term changes that are likely to happen. Having said that, there are serious risks that AI can pose, right? Which is really about inclusion or financial frauds that may be happening, which is why you may not see an overarching regulation, but more changes that are needed to prevent. A lot requires a lot of compliances for people to follow. But as a startup, if you're building for the world, it's not just about India. What's happening in the EU world, what's happening in US or other markets. Startup India, NASSCOM, a lot of other people provide a lot of this, which should not be daunting, but at least helps you build the guardrails, right? So NASSCOM, we have a responsible AI toolkit, we have a developers guidebook. So those are just you can look at as you are building your AI solutions. So,
I think some substance is, I think, for a startup founder, I think the sky is the limit. I think and are we out of time? We are 2 minutes. Okay, I saw one book.
I think we have something called as compliance for data protection, DPPI. Right? Will we see that soon?
the rules are now published, meaning the rules are out for consultation. So you will also see the rules getting published over the next 6 weeks.
At some point in time, right? So how to make a very AI-driven and which features should actually take a human intervened approach?
Use common sense, like there are so many things you don't need AI for. Like I'll tell you, I've been working with startups for the last 10 years. I think there are so many needs. Like, if it's a simple search where you have to compare two tables and do correlation, you don't need AI, you don't need Gen AI, you don't need any of those things. But if there is something far deeper, I think that's where you actually want to do it.
So no user research also.
No, good thing is user research is mainly for and workflows, and then what's the outcome they want out of your product. That is user research. Use of AI is the so as a product manager, you should not even be getting into do it in AI. That should be the engineer's job of your
As a product manager, I need
that's your job. Prioritize the features. How you build it, leave it engineer.
Thank you.
So, but with AI, you can code fast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Ajay, for insightful perspective on the convergence of these critical technologies. I would like to request our speakers to please remain on stage. Let's have a big round of applause for our speakers. Into a crucial aspect of DeepTech ecosystem, funding. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. DeepTech innovation offers specialized investment approaches. To guide us through this discussion, I would like to welcome our moderator, Mr. Raghuram Raju, CEO of Let's have a round of applause for our speakers, please. He will be joined by two experienced investors. I would like to invite at Seed Fund. Please join us on stage.
Already there is more here in the picture than you can see. We finished playing the musical chairs, and I think we are sitting under the right pictures. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raghu Dharmaraju. I'm the CEO of ArtPark. Very counterintuitively stands for AI and Robotics Technology Park. The Ministry of Science. We build. I wanted to just kick this off with essentially your funds, right? So introduce yourself and your fund. What's the typical? Do you want to see product? Are you happy just with some tech, or are you happy just with a concept? What's that maturity level you're looking for? And perhaps make it real using one recent or prototype. So yeah, over to you both.
Thank you so much, Raghu, and lovely to be here. Full house, it's good to see. Okay. Lovely to be here and lovely to see a full house. I'm Arjun Rao from Special Invest. We are an early stage venture capital firm investing in deep tech ideas. We've been doing this now for 8+ years. We want to be the very first institutional investor and lead these rounds with anywhere between $500,000 to $1.5 million. Right? So concept is absolutely fine. It's nice to see a prototype. Maybe an MVP, the capital that we put in goes into building the first version of the product. That building out, we talk about technology readiness levels, TRL, possibly somewhere in the phase where you can convert the science and the tech that has been proven out to convert it into a product and then take it to market. I can't remember the last time that we invested in.
What if they don't have pilot customers?
No, we are
joint?
We're curious in our evaluation process to understand who they go to. Now that Special has invested and continues to be excited about over the last 8 years, we've done about 40 investments across 2 fund cycles, and the sectors that we have touched on. There's a very strong push towards privatization of space in the country. It's very exciting. So we've done a fair bit of that, 6 companies. We have climate, energy, sustainability, so hardware engineering solutions for that entire sector. EV, if you will, is another sub-vertical. Semiconductors is a new area. Relatively, we haven't been doing it long enough, but last 2 weeks, software AI is almost overarching all of this. So I'll take a pause because we're going to touch on the broader gamut of what we do.
Hi, good afternoon. So we from C Fund, we invest in again tech startups, early stage. Concept across 2 fund cycles. We've invested in, started in early 16, 18 time frame. A lot of sort of fintech plays, fintech infra type plays were done at that point. Actually turned out pretty well. And to your point about how different, I mean, one of the sectors or one of the companies we invested, actually to your point about an example, is financing insurance premiums for people who are not able to pay their premiums. And it was a completely counterintuitive idea, like, why would you give money to some people who is not able to pay this money? And they've turned out to be a fantastic investment. In fact, we've gone on 2 or 3 rounds into the company, and they sort of continuously going. So we've taken bets and continue to take bets like that. Gen Robotics was another company which we went relatively early. For the folks who don't know, these guys go off, they build robots which go off into sewers and go clean sewers. Pretty cool technology. Guys, I mean, the application may not be as sexy as, space, but the guys, if you go see their lab, their software expertise, their hardware expertise, their actuators, the robots, now they're applying it to various other use cases. So again, relatively early, there, much of the rounds there. Most recently, I think a few, did they have revenue? Did they have customers? Not really. I mean, they had some revenue which is sort of second time founder said, I want to build a data center in space, right? And everybody's like, what, why, etc., etc. Of course, do invest in ideas very early. They don't have to have, revenue. They don't even have to have a committed tech sector. Semiconductors, I wish I could announce it today, but we're probably going to announce it early next week. All done, mostly completed. So that's somewhere between sort of 300K to a million plus, over 1 or 2 rounds. Smaller fund, over to fund with a lot of green shoes. So working and always looking for ideas. And we've done a bunch of EV infra also early on. We wanted to do, but somehow space is just not clear enough in our heads, frankly, right now.
So let me also take an opportunity because we play a slightly different role in the ecosystem. We are a non-profit R&D lab created by the University of Science to essentially as a translational facility, right? Which means we are expected to be this bridge between deep research and useful products and startups, right? In this mode, we have, as investments, we have gone up to 250,000, 2 crores essentially. But as grant, we have funded startups before we even fund them out as startups, up to 15 crores, right? And the result is companies such as, I was just explaining to Arjun earlier, Thora Robotics. They make actuators and now robotic arms to harmonic with actuator technology, which is actually very unique and difficult to make. There are also companies such as AlgoFet and Comrado, which is autonomous drone navigation and such. We also have some companies out here. The way we have found ourselves having to do to really translate technologies, these weren't even teams yet. We found the founders based on concepts and technologies that were emerging in labs, right? And we had to create the founding teams and then as internal teams and then ultimately launch them as, some of them, we've killed some, launch them out as startups. So this might have been TRL 2, 3, right? That stage, right? So this is a very different kind of pipeline we are looking at. Insights. Where are you seeing your pipeline in deep tech, and what are some challenges you can get to? Is also what do we ecosystem, the academic research ecosystem especially, need to be doing, right? Because the sort of things I've just talked about. Right. Right now, we just funded a company where the professor was involved in the GNC algorithms, guidance navigation control algorithm of Chandrayaan-3. Right. Now we are funding those technologies to the drone and space. Right. He's a professor with some students. Now we're trying to create a company. Okay. So. Yeah, some reflections on challenges, concerns. Why don't we start with you?
I was a student of Ashok Jindal way back in early 90s, right? For people who don't know, Ashok Jindal was a professor from IIT Madras who, I think, fundamentally innovated on the concept of research and stuff. His lab was famous called telematics lab, right? So I'm an old man. That has sort of, zoomed off in a completely different direction now with the Satyas and some of the others in that. So, good news, to your question about what should research institutions do, is the good news is if you walk around, you won't have enough time to see all the innovation. That's the good news. There is a capital efficiency discussion here, right? At Art Park and other institutions, your capital has a different purpose. It's come with a different purpose. Our capital has come to us with slightly different purpose where we have to return back the capital in a finite amount of time. So my request to research institutions is go longer, go deeper, right? There's enough tech ecosystem which is solving the next 5 years' problems. The larger institutions have to go worry about fundamentally cells, fundamentally chemistry, fundamentally nuclear, fundamentally, materials, different materials in semiconductors. Right?
Are you saying you're not seeing deep enough stuff?
Not at all.
Okay.
So you want to see
Sounds like a challenge you are saying.
more.
It's very counterintuitive. You're not saying don't give me shallow stuff.
No.
Give me stuff that.
What I'm saying is the time has come where the ecosystem is now doing a lot. Like just look at Special's portfolio. Let's just look at a couple of funds' portfolio, right? These are investments we are making with a return hopefully in the 5 to 7 year range because we want the money back and then return it back to the investors. Our horizon is going to be that much. Maybe we can push it by 2 to 3 years more. But the deeper research will have to start investing, which is things which we need 10 years from now, right? So, Bill Mangemo, we need to do more. I was just in a room with a very senior government officials, 2 minutes away from here, and we said the country is doing fantastic. I mean, just walk around, fantastic innovation. That's the good news. There's a lot of money coming from the government. That's the good news. The challenge is we're running fast, but the bus has run much faster across the globe. If you just look at semiconductor consumption, power consumption in the last 6 months, how many of you here have done a Ghibli or GHB or whatever it's pronounced? There's used more power ever. The usage of these resources has gone crazy across the globe, right? Consumption is happening. Now we need to accelerate and innovate from here more. Right? And to your other question about where do we find founders, etc.
Where's your pipeline?
They're not restricted to Bangalore. They're not restricted to IITs. We have founders from across the country, across institutions, and we love to talk to everyone. Keep me honest, Arla.
Over to you.
I think well captured. The crux is, where is the flow? When we started the fund 8 years ago, first of all, I think somebody was finding it or yet to be coined in some sense. And everybody was saying, you see enough. You're seeing enough. It's not clear where those what goals are. Less than possibly even 3 to 4 years ago. Obviously, the academic institutions of this country, where research, his capabilities are there, people are there, professors are there, labs, and it has been happening. Has it historically been largely academic? But that convergence of that to
Very diplomatic kind of.
right? Right. So, but I think we're all waking up to the fact that let's not do research in isolation. Right? While we have to think long-term, we also have to have that conversation. Maybe not with venture capital. We've got to have that conversation with industry, right? And which obviously forums like these enable, right? So that you can say, hey, what are we doing for 5 years? What are we doing for 10 years? What are we doing for 5 years? We are super excited, heavier on premier academic institutions in this country so far. It is not exclusive to them, but it is heavy there. Somewhere in that 70% range that comes from, the IITs, the ISCs, the newer. In a lot of amazing private institutions that also have these labs.
What do you wish you would see differently in your team? What are the challenges? Give you both a are there deals that come to you that you say, this looks very attractive, I wish I could do this, if only they had A and B, or A or B. Is that A or B you keep stumbling on again and again, that you think someone else in the ecosystem, perhaps someone who might be earlier in that pipeline like us, might
be academic leaning research, and therefore, come out with a breakthrough in science or tech.
not enough engagement. Not enough engagement with the
industry. should have thought about this before.
Yeah. Go to market starts at the beginning, not after you create.
Yeah, I think, you're right. From our perspective, yes, right? It should not from their perspective because it might muddle up with the research. So I'm cognizant of that balance. And at least at regular touch points, having that conversation saying this is what we're doing, we're getting decided in 3 years or 2 years. When this happens, this is the material will be 10x better. 10x better good enough, or at what price point does it matter, or at what, right? So variety of these things. One of our most recent three material and chemistry PhDs, right? Doing long-term research, right? Coming up with a very breakthrough approach, something, and it is like PhDs. They're all actually defense of their PhDs as we speak. The work sheet has been out, and one should get to that now sometime soon, right? But they just want to complete the defense of their PhDs in the coming weeks, really. And then, but the last 6 months or so, they've been thinking about commercialization of that. But that is definitely 5 years of work, right? If not longer, if the professor was doing work on that even before that, right? But wish some of these conversations happen sooner, and I think that can help us be excited.
I think we see two patterns, risk of forming patterns. There are these complete out there ideas, which basically founder imagining, putting together thought, done some research, showing whether it's in materials or in usage or in human-machine interaction type of scenarios. There, it's a mix. Frankly, internally we're like, chalega, nahi chalega, long term, lots and lots of those questions are always there. And then there are, of course, deals which are, I would say, as a capitalist, we are tempted. It's like good founders have figured out their niche, fit, etc. is there, will make money in 3 to 4 years. We also need 1 or 2 of those balancing out. And at the same time, very well defensible and stuff like that, and we'll have a tech model. Our fundamentals is, if it is not a strong technology-backed tech team or technology mode, we are 95% chance we'll figure it out. Even the 5% I'm leaving it open, I'm just so that my IC and LP Our thesis, our PPM, our focus, our IC, our teams are all filtering tech, right? You're bringing in a proposal, show the tech jobs, show the tech depth, show the tech founding teams, etc. Bring your engineers, whether they can communicate in English or not, doesn't matter. We love to chat with your engineers to understand what they're doing. We'll make them comfortable. We're all from engineering background, so we love basic tech people coming in and sort of chatting with us. So that has to be.
I'm going to pick up on just the next one on the first part that you mentioned, the slightly or fairly sometimes far out ideas, right? That's a very interesting, point of conversation for all of us, because we are a developing nation. We have a long way to go, right? We never had the luxuries of, excess capital and resources in some sense. So we're cognizant of that, but at the same time, we should dream, right? One thing that we are emphasizing for ourselves and our portfolio companies and founders that are pitching is, when you have far out ideas and concepts, right, then the gap, because it is far out, which is commercialization, customers, revenue, will not be in 3 years, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, right? Of course, I'm not saying 10 is easy for venture capital to do, but the point is, then the onus is on the inventor, innovator, entrepreneur to be bolder and better in storytelling, right? And as an ecosystem, we can all do that so much better, right? We don't have to bluff, right? There's a difference between bluffing but still selling future vision, right? Which is a few years away, which is not easily visible. That storytelling aspect is, I think, super critical, very underrated, maybe even historically, again, when we went to school, college, etc., it wasn't emphasis wasn't given saying, hey, do the work, don't tell stories. Right? I would say it is so critical. It is so important because the stories will get the capital will give you time, and the time will give you the ability to solve the problems.
So imagine the future.
And the stories will get to customers also.
Absolutely. Convinces people that are not convinced.
Got it. Wonderful.
So I'll do a very quick rapid round here, 30 seconds each. One wish from your side in bridging that research to commercialization gap. I heard both of you say, but you both. So, what's a wish for you that we as an ecosystem, I'm not saying who should solve it, could solve it to help bridge that to a point where you actually are going to invest in.
So the question is, what stage do we want the pipeline to come at, or?
Like, if you had a magic wand, right, and you would say, hey, I wish someone would do X to bridge this gap, what would that be?
No, for the right story, we'll even go at 2 or 3. Right? For the right story, and if you're convinced, we'll go at 2, 3, 4, at that range we'll go. I think both of us made the point that we're not hung up on making sure there's a revenue line item, a positive line item. For the right story, we will go.
Remember this, folks, we are investing at TRL2.
And even if we can't, that's one thing we tell people is even if we can't invest at that point, right, and I'm sure Arjun will agree with me, we'll keep in touch, we'll connect them to the right people, we'll make sure whatever our network and contacts is,
Maybe connect them to us.
Absolutely.
To help mature them a little bit.
Absolutely. So that your depth of knowledge in that field will at least get them maybe a notch or 2 higher. Right? So it's not like, well, listen, you know, Agam doesn't like you, he's filtered you out, so that name is gone. No, gone. We'll connect, and then we'll keep watching, right? And then help them through that. That's at least one thing we try to pride at, which is help them through the journey. It's not just the money. Help them through business. I don't know how much value add we can do, but at least help them, through the business.
It will not come to them. If I'm giving that advice, it's very bad. From a wishlist perspective, obviously the simplest thing to say is 100x, 1000x has to come from government, it has to come from, academic institutions, that is corrected, it is taxpayer money, making forms, pockets, and others are, right, we need the corporate.
So we kind of missed.
But I think the corporates.
To me, the wish list could have been industry participation.
Absolutely.
It would be if industry puts another 50%, and then we go after really deep stuff.
My investing background starts with a corporate VC with Intel Capital a long time ago.
Yeah, I think this.
We are missing Anirvan, who would have been nice.
Okay. Just that leverage on that first dollar, which is seemingly the first $100, which is seemingly the riskiest dollar, right? If you get $1, $2 from government, something you can get infrastructure from academia, right? Which is labs, testing facilities, etc., which is dollars basically, right? Otherwise, you're going to go and build that, and then you get corporate. Right? That's like $1 basic money, but $5 possibly for the startup, and that's phenomenal. That's the push that we need, because these things need $5 and then 50 and then not more and more, right? So I think that's my number one wish list.
How many of you know about ANRF? This is that 1 lakh crore or so which government has announced. 1 lakh crore.
50,000 first, 50 plus 50.
And lots of zeros there, lots of zeros, right? That's the point which Arjun was saying, which is government is at least putting its sight in that direction. You have ideas, right to them. Right? Reach out to DPIP, reach out to MeitY. Don't be shy. You have early stage ideas, write to them, write to any of us, write to the government. There's lots of avenues of grants if you walk around, right? There's art park zones, there's MeitY zones, there's DPIP zones. Much to help DeepTech startups. you have more momentum than ever before in the history of Indian startup ecosystem. Capital, help, marketplace, advisors, talent was always there.
Great. With that, we wrap it up. I don't know if we have any time for any questions or
Maybe one question.
maybe one question.
I'm sure there are more, but
Yeah. So let's keep this really a question. Keep it a deep question. No comments.
So I want to ask for a tech company.
Yes. I think you and also mentioned it. There is a deep technical insight that this team brings to the table. Usually bases their past life, which is either in academia or in industry, from where they have spent a lot of time based on that deep technical insight.
Stage of finding a
So please.
We can talk offline.
Yeah, we can talk offline. One
Yes.
question done. Thank you.
yeah. Because of time, we'll move on.
You want more? No, that's it.
Okay, let's take one more question.
You just mentioned about the government fund of 1 lakh crore, 50 plus 50. So are there any special criteria, like, you should have X number of founders and the turnover should be so much? Some of those.
Website does a good job of explaining what the latest plans are. Do go check it out. What's happening is actually this, but ultimately you will need solutions. With that, thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, Raghu, Arjun, and many insights. I'm sure many founders in the audience have gained, perspective on how to approach investors and look for it. I'll request all of you to be clapping sound to match number of people in the room. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome. And let's put it together.